it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. This is likely to be a short one. Very deflated. I want to scream into the microphone, as I'm sure every other Villa fan wants to do as well at this moment in time. But we got to come on the bad days as well as we do in the good days. And I'm going to try and stay measured for this. But if I do slide into fandom, which I inevitably will. Sorry for the nervous laughter, but I inevitably will. Then I'm sure that you guys will give me a pass on it, because that wasn't that as days of football, never mind opening days, as days of football go, that couldn't have been worse. What happened on the field, there was a lot bad there. And it shouldn't have been bad. And there's a lot of there's a lot of I told you so's going on. But Aston Villa should have been in that game. They really should have been in that game. I thought, like, first half things were nowhere near perfect, but we went in 2-1 down. I think at times we could have felt, I think in parts of that first half we could have felt aggrieved. We can talk about fouls in the beginning of the first goal, offsides and blocks, and in the second goal and all that kind of stuff. That was fine. The second half was categorical. It was categorical that we came out of there with, like the players came out on the field and looked leaderless, which was worrying. That was the worrying thing, and that might sound a bit hyperbolic, but I think they did. No one took the game by the scruff of the neck. Tyrone Mings is the big talking point from this. From an Aston Villa side of things should be, and it's the context that frames the whole second half. But the context that frames that is Tyrone Mings looks like he's going to be out for a long, long period of time, and that's the shit sandwich that this game has given us, if you'll excuse the phrase. Bad enough to be beaten 5-1. Good mate of mine said to me yesterday, there's always a tonking given out on the first day of the season. And I said, we've had enough of them. We won't have it tomorrow. By God, was I wrong. I expected us to go there to be disciplined. I expected us to go there to be resolute. I expected us to go there and to know that the season is going to be won by going gung-ho against Newcastle United. But how the season could be won would be by being compact, by being difficult to break down, and going away to a team that finished above us and getting a point. And we didn't do that. We certainly did not do that. Midfield was supposed to be an area, we called it out when the teams were announced. Called out midfield as an area we had to win. Unfortunately, there wasn't a player there that played above a 5 for me, unfortunately, and that's where a lot of our issues came from. So passive in midfield. Our midfield then tried to retreat onto the toes of our centre halves who were playing a high line, and we can discuss the high line all we want, but realistically speaking, the high line is what players are practicing all the time. It's and when Pau Torres comes on, it really disjoints that, and then obviously when Diego Carlos comes on and Ezri Konsa has pushed the right back. I think when we saw Ezri Konsa against Harvey Barnes, and Ezri Konsa was good until he made that big mistake, and then his head just went, I felt. And it was a big mistake. We're only 2-1 down. That makes it 3-1. That wasn't, I think that's what happened. I think that made it 3-1. That was a bitter pill, because, when you're 2-1 down, you could grab it, squirt the equalizer and something happens. That makes it 3-1. Then Callum Wilson makes it 4. Harvey Barnes makes it 5. It's a tsunami after that. I tweeted an awful lot about Boubacar Kamara in the middle of midfield. I would love I would love to get my hands on footage that just followed him around the place for the whole game. And I would argue that the game plan he was given, he wasn't in position for more than 15% of the game for the game plan that he was given. Obviously, I'm pulling those numbers out of the side of my head, but he always seemed to be out of position, 3 steps behind. He was the first person to retreat onto the toes of the centre halves and then stand there and not chase back when the high line was breached. I felt that he was. I was worried. I was very, very worried from early doors. I was worried. He lost Tonali for the first goal, and Hinchcliffe started blaming Bailey. Like, just give me a break. Boubacar Kamara loses him, stands there, looks at him. Not good. Not good. Second goal, he doesn't move back. Like he doesn't try to get into a position to he doesn't even retreat back towards his goals at all. He stays in he holds the line for whatever reason when it crosses in. And yes, there was a potential offside there. There was 5 or 6 times in this game where Villa players, specifically I think for the second last goal, Villa players just stood up and called for offside, as opposed to the old adage is you play to the whistle. And they didn't. They looked for offsides, and then when it wasn't given, it was a tight call. It was like, oh well, what can we do? Leadership. Specifically when we went 3-1 down. Yeah, there were some poor performances out there, some really poor performances. A lot of people online giving out about Ollie Watkins. Was he really the worst player on the field today? In your heart of hearts, was he really the worst player on the field today? He certainly wasn't. He certainly wasn't for me. I'm not going to go into all the goals and all the potential gripes and everything like that we have, because at the end of the day, Newcastle were far superior than us. Specifically in the second half, they just blew us away because we didn't have, as I said, leadership. Leadership was lacking out there in that second half, and that's that's not having a go at players, but McGinn was taken off and Mings was injured. Who's the go-to leader in the team there after that? Probably Douglas Luiz, maybe. Emi Martinez was in goals. He was already after getting a yellow card for coming off his line, pulling a fella down in the first half. I don't know. I'm loath to, and it isn't an overreaction to how the game went. I don't think. If you guys think it is an overreaction, and there's 168 comments there, I'm going to open them up, but I will skim through them if you guys don't mind. I thank you very much for taking the time to put a comment in there. I really, really do, and I really appreciate them, and I'll go back and read them afterwards. I've got a big red face, and you'll appreciate that if I start reading all the comments, that I will get very, very worked up, and I don't want to exactly go absolutely berserk on the podcast, if you don't mind, because the internet never forgets, put it that way. And I think I owe the podcast a bit more than going full Arsenal fan TV on it, because that's not what the podcast is about. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting now, because we're going to have to rework that backline in Tyrone Mings' absence. There was a rumor about one fight potentially coming in. That was a very spurious rumor, but it was yesterday. I think something like that needs to be revisited. I was really concerned about the right side today. I was really Matty Cash. Every time Anthony Gordon got near him, he gave away a foul. That put so much pressure on our back line as well. He never looked comfortable facing up to him. He never looked comfortable chasing back either. Leon Bailey's, a couple of people have mentioned on Twitter as well. You know, he just doesn't have that defensive ability. He doesn't, like, and Hinchcliffe was talking about him being the issue for the first goal. He wasn't. He didn't track that run, but there was far more that was wrong than that, if that makes sense. But he had a poor game. And we said beforehand that, you know, Leon Bailey keeps having poor games and we keep giving him chances because we know that Unai Emery is going to start him. And today was one of the ones whereby he didn't play. He didn't play well in a defensive point of view. Gave the ball away when he got it in from an attacking point of view. And we just looked overawed at times. And we should have been, because Newcastle were really, really good in that second half. But we should never be in that position, if that makes sense. All the good work done last year for building mentality, that should have been relied upon in that second half. When you go 3-1 down, you keep it at 3-1. 5-1 is like, there won't be a back page headline tomorrow that won't include Aston Villa. And it'll be for the wrong reasons. And that's a stinger. It's going to sting. It's really going to sting, and it should, because we all should have been optimistic at the start of this game, and it won't stop me being optimistic for the start of the next game, because that's how I find. Compartmentalize, move on. Otherwise, I try not to introduce too many things into my life that consistently can give me heartache, but I can live with one or two, and they happen to be the sports teams that I follow, if that makes sense. But the point that I'm trying to make there is that, like, I don't think any Aston Villa fan here should feel. No, actually, you know what? It's not for me to tell you how to feel. It's not for me to tell you how to feel at all. And feel however you want. That's not what this podcast is about. We don't tell you. We don't try and do that. But what I would say is that I, as an Aston Villa fan, won't be. I'll gnash my teeth after that today, and I'll purposely stay away from all football content tomorrow as best I can, because it will be a dance on Aston Villa fest. And to be honest with you, our performance kind of leads to that. And like, there is no rose petal laden pathway that you can get from that game towards positives that you can build on, other than the Abbey's goal, I suppose. Really, like, there was a lot wrong, and there's a lot wrong, I think, because specifically after when Tyrone Mings went off, because there was a sense. I think there was a sense of panic. I think there was a sense of lack of discipline positionally, huge lack of discipline positionally, and I hate to call him out again, but I think that was very much. And he's a good player. Don't get me wrong; he's a good player, and I'm not in the business of turning around and going, this player's shite after one performance. It's not the business we're in. That's not the business I'm in. Everybody gets a second chance. Everybody can have a bad game. I had a stinker of a day on work on Friday, but I wouldn't expect to be fired for it. Everybody can have a bad game. But I think Kamara's position today was a root of an awful lot of our problems. And I will watch the game back again. I will specifically watch the first 60 minutes, 70 minutes back again, because I think the positioning of our midfield was it left corridors open that people could run into in the first half. And in the second half, when we retreated back onto our defense, I was literally there, and I had my head in my hands going, why are we retreating so far back onto already high line? This makes no sense. This is only pulling players up further, means that they can play the ball in low into their midfielders now, and have Harvey Barnes just pull wide like he did, or have Almiron pull wide like he did. That's all they had to do. When your midfield don't step back onto your defender's toes, when they keep a distance between them, that's less people to play the ball into at their feet. If you have less people there, the wingers have to come a small bit more narrower. Now, obviously, there will be situations with Trippier and when maybe when the ball was on the other side, I think it might have been Tonali had it, and they played a diagonal ball over the defense. That's not so bad, because a defense can kind of get back and get settled to some sort of a degree in that instance. But when you play the ball into somebody's feet, even with their back to goal, and they get turned and play a ball around the corner, when you've got 7 men or 6 men all in such a short space of Villa players, should I say, when the midfielder are back on people's toes. There's no cover. There's no cover. There's no reaction will get you into a position that will make you be able to get back and have control of the situation. It just won't happen. And that for me was eye-openingly kind of worrying. But as I say, I think it was because we lost leadership in Mings going off. And that's not an excuse. Who's going to stand up in Mings' absence now? Who's going to stand up? And who's going to be that almost that like Mings has been an embodiment of almost like a spiritual leader, if you want to call it that way. And I might be talking nonsense here now, and I'm very much open to ridicule. But Mings has been through it. He's made loads of mistakes, and he's mentally come back from it. And he's had, lumps and crap thrown at him. Other fans hate him, and he's just gone out about it. And he's done his business, and he's been a shining light within this team. With regards to, you get up, you dust yourself down, you work hard, and you get back into the stride of things, and you get back into the England squad. And you do it. And he's a big man, and he's a big character, and he's a big presence, and he's a big mentality in that team. And he's not going to be there for the rest of the season. That was a bad injury. He's not going to be there for the rest of the season. So who's going to be the next big mentality that's going to be there? Who's going to rise out of that 5-1 drubbing that we've seen here? Who's going to rise out here of that as the new big dog, the new person that somebody looks to for and goes, "Geez, I'm not sure. In my mind here, I'm not sure I've got the beatings of this guy." Who are people going to look to in that instance for that leadership on the field, for that leadership by doing that demonstration of against all odds persevere? It's going to be John McGinn, I think, but we had two of them. Now we've only got one. And from a mentally soft point of view, I never thought I'd think that. I never thought I'd think that about this team after what they've been through and the way that they finished out last season. And that could be an overreaction on my part. Fully open to that. But I'm just talking about how I feel. I said I'd slip into fan mode. I'm slipping into philosophical fan mode here at the moment. But that to me is a big concern. We have players that Unai Emery can get into can mold, can get into position and can fix what he's seen there against 99% of teams. We have players from a physical and from a talent point of view that we can do that with. And we will buy in more players. I have no doubt that Nicola Zaniolo is going to come through. Whether he has the mentality to be that person, I don't know. I've no doubt we will go and we will buy another person outside of Nicola Zaniolo. But who's from the, it's going to have to be someone from the current group. It's going to have to be someone from the leadership group. Another person we've lost, Ashley Young, might have been that person. He's no longer there. It's something that, Tyrone Mings has been Mr. kind of, he's been like Iron Man for us for a while. And now he's not there. He's not going to be there for the season. And that's the big concern for me. And that should be that's the talking point for this game. 5-1 will hurt until we get our next win, and it'll be forgotten about again. It's fine. Yeah, we'll take our licks from the Geordies. They're going to slag us for the rest of the year. Who cares? Fake rivalries with the Geordies, fake rivalries with Leeds fans when they were in the Premier League. They're all fake rivalries. They don't matter. They don't care. Who cares? You're winning an argument on Twitter, and nobody wins in an argument on Twitter. Big thing to come out of this game today is who's going to replace all that Tyrone Mings does from a leadership, from a presence point of view. And I'm going to have to give that thought because I don't know who it is off the top of my head. Now I'm going to come to your comments. Jesus, 423 comments. Sorry, because I feel like a priest to the sermon. And I'm so sorry about that because I felt I got a bit preachy there. So if anybody did think that, don't tune out. I don't always get preachy. I'm going to start at the bottom. And as Gig Sharma says, Neil is seething. I am trying to keep a lid on this. Anybody want a bit of a comedic relief? Paddy texted me about 20 minutes into the second half and said, I might burst into flames if I go on the podcast. Do you mind if I not go on tonight? And I said, fair enough. That is okay. Actually, my exact words were, I was going to text you and suggest you didn't, but I didn't know how to word it. So just a bit of a hopefully that's a bit of a comedic relief there for anyone. But yeah, as I say, I'm going to come to some of your comments there. Look, I'm going to stay away from X player is shit, X player needs to go, X player sack Unai. If there's anything like that in there, I'm going to stick away from it because we're all in the moment. Apologies. It's not censorship. It's just because I don't have anything to offer to comments like that, unfortunately. Where else are we there? Let me go through here. Oh, we've a couple of Newcastle fans. Thanks for joining. Don't slag us too much. Daniel Glasson, that's a good point. Was 5-1 fair? I'd say it was lucky. Attack isn't the foundation of a decent team. I think there was an element of luck in some of their goals, and there was an element of mistakes from our side in some of their goals. But throughout the game, Newcastle were better. I think this, like, I'm embarrassed by the scoreline. I think it should. If you were to tell me what should that scoreline be if all things were right, I think Newcastle should have won that, and I think probably 3-1 was probably a fair scoreline because we didn't come out in the second half at all. 5-1 stings though. 5-1 really, really stings, and just the manner of the third goal. If I'm not mistaken, can someone pop it in there? It might be further up in the comments, but if someone can pop in there, was the third goal Kansa's goal? I don't have access to another browser window, unfortunately, at the moment. But if someone can let me know that. Oh, we've a couple. Do you know what, guys? I really want to thank some people here because some people felt it in their hearts to give super chats, even though I was talking nonsense there for a while. I want Bailey in a plane tonight, says Sir Unai. Adam says, look like Gerard Ball, 2 aligned and our fullbacks for Witt and Kantara has actually run. At least it can't get worse than that. Mr. Ramsey. Disagree about Torres, but I haven't seen enough of him. I do think he can run, but it's a difficult situation to be thrown into there. Really missed when Buendia, no creativity, start Coutinho. I could get on board with starting Coutinho, but as I say, I don't think that's the root of our issue from today. I think the root of our issue came from stability in the middle of midfield. And when you couldn't get a foothold here, everybody was dragged back, and then everybody got dragged back too far onto our defense, and that's where the fourth and fifth goal come from, unfortunately. And that's really good night Irene stuff. The slip from Kanza was the catalyst, I think, for I think they genuinely knew they had no way back at that stage, but the fourth and fifth goals were, yeah, listen, look, they were the real put downs, I think. Where else are we? Yeah, Brett. Actually, I said I wasn't going to read those. But Unai out. Dean House needs to be given a chance. Never let us down. Courtney House, as far as I know, hasn't trained in 14 months due to injury. So I'm not sure. Now I could have missed him in some of the training in some of the training videos, but Courtney House got a really bad injury apparently at Watford and didn't even have and wasn't allowed to have medical treatment by Villa. And Watford didn't give him any medical treatment, and there's some tribunal over it. So I don't think Courtney House will ever play football again until the tribunal is sorted. I could be wildly wrong on that. It just sticks out in the back of my mind. Newcastle bullied us. They certainly did. Their midfield, that Newcastle midfield, Joe Linton is like a bouncer inside there. He was really effective today in what he did. Tonali had a lot of space. Bruno Marsh had a lot of space. But Joe Linton created it all. And we couldn't get to the pace of Joe Linton, or we couldn't found it very difficult to go through their midfield. And that was a shame. That was a shame. Aston Villa Armchair fan says maybe it's Diego Carlos' chance to step up and replace Mings in the team. Maybe he replaces him as a like-for-like player, but from a leadership point of view, I've seen nothing to suggest that Diego Carlos can be a leader like Tyrone Mings, and solely because Diego Carlos hasn't played enough football for Aston Villa. I hope he is. That's what I'll say. Yeah, good question, Ian Hudson. Where have the lines gone for offsides? Where have they gone? Where have a lot of things gone? Where's the rule book gone at times? Albeit the rules weren't the reason we lost today. for a finish. I agree, Shane. I think Konza needs to step up. The last thing he needed after Cairo Mings going off was that slip today. That was the last thing he needed. I fully expect him to recover from it. Like, don't get me wrong, but that slip was for the whole team. That was the burst balloon, because it was the glaringly it was a glaringly silly goal to give away. Unfortunately, I expect him to come back. I back Konza. I'm pro Konza for sure. Um. Yeah, I'm struggling. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm struggling to go backwards and read the comments because there's new comments coming in that's pushing everything up. So I do apologize. I'm going to go back down to the very end again. Yeah, okay. It seems to be getting heated in the comments as well, there, guys. So I will stay away from those. Unfortunately, you guys can chat amongst yourselves. Apologies about that. But Shane Coleman, thank you so much again. He says, thanks, Neil and Paddy. Always a good listen. Well, that's going to send me on my way with a small bit of a pep in my step. The fact that people actually enjoy listening to this, and as I say, one of the things that I hope you guys don't mind me doing is trying to trash out, and sometimes I even contradict myself in post match stuff. But hopefully it's cathartic for you guys as well, because I'd love to be able to get. Would you believe I have the software to do a live phone in show after after a game? Myself and Paddy spoke about potentially doing it today, and I am I'm the happiest person in the world that I didn't set it up, because I haven't tested it or anything like that yet. And if it might never come to fruition, but I need to invest in a bleep button, I think, if there is going to be anything like that. But don't hold your breath for something like that in the short term. So I probably shouldn't have said anything about live phone in show. Specifically live phone in shows. But listen, I'm going to leave it at that, guys. There's probably other post-match shows going on at the moment, and they're probably going to have more relevant things to say as opposed to me talking about spiritual leaders and stuff like that. I'm trying to gather my thoughts like most of you guys are at the moment. Trying my best not to get too, as Dean Smith always said, one of the best phrases Dean Smith ever said was, "Don't get too high in the high, and don't get too high in the highs, and don't get too low in the lows." And I think I'll definitely be repeating that to myself when I start kicking the ground later on tonight about this game. But it's an interesting one, and I think that I expect there to be a backlash from the players. I expect there to be tweaks to the system. I expect Unai Emery to be able to get this right, because Unai Emery gets things like this right. This is what he's famous for doing. But the players do need to kind of hold their hands up and ask themselves that question about who's going to be the ringleader, who's going to be the leader of the gang from here on out. From that kind of it's going to be John McGinn, as I say, but who's going to step in and fill that other leadership role that Tyrone Mings brought to the team when they're on the field. Mings is going to be in the back room. Don't get me wrong. He's not going to be around the facility, but who's going to do it in the field? And somebody needs to step up and do that pronto. I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Thanks so much for watching and for listening. There's only 600 of you here. It's very hard to ask anybody to give a thumbs up on something like this afterwards. But if you do, if you like the podcast, please do, and please subscribe as well. I'll be back with Paddy at some stage this week, probably Monday, because I don't know what can I do tomorrow. So if you guys want to tune in to hear the live unadulterated version of Paddy's reaction to this, please do so. Until then, everybody have try not let this affect your night. Anybody who's at the game, who's watching this, get home safely. Paramount, we need you here. We need you guys. We need everybody here. But everybody who's there, get home safely. And for everybody who isn't there, that is doing stuff later on tonight, stay safe and stay healthy. It's only a football game at the end of the day. It's going to sting, as I say, but we'll come back as the first game of the season. We'll just win the next 37. We'll just win the next 37 games, and everything will be fine. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching, for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.